Hello, everybody, for the Webinar Wednesday session. I have a really great guest today, Chris Day from Fully Managed Canada. He's a fellow Canadian. And you know what? The story behind is really interesting that when I was coming to Canada, I was checking all the MSPs around, and I found this website, which has really, really amazed me that how these guys were able to communicate this, managed service kind of commodity stuff. And I had the chance to go to their office like a couple of months ago, and I was totally amazed how these guys are working, how many people they have. And I was totally stunned that someone can bring MSP in that level. I want to talk with this guy, how he managed that and how to create that. So just welcome Chris Day from Vancouver, and just, you know what, just introduce
Thank you.
yourself really quickly, but I want to, get on
You did a better
yeah.
job. You already introduced me so well, so thank you. Yeah, so
How
the
many people you
story,
have? How long you are in business? Just the basics.
yeah, so I started fully managed out of home office, one person, which was me, and it was 2002, so
So you
12
were
years ago.
employee one.
I was employee one. I was a very good employee, worked hard. So 12 years later, we have I guess fast forward to right now, we have an MSP that is, very high functioning in terms of, our sales function, our conversion rates around sales, our service delivery. We win awards on this. Our customers love us. Um, eh, but that was a long road. And so, I think we first started doing managed services as a group of about eight of us. Maybe that was 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago. So about 4 years into the company, and we thought we were doing a great job, and we sold our services then probably about half, if not less than half, what we sell it today, price wise. And so it worked actually quite well at that size. You have a small number of clients and you have, seven, eight staff, and you can have that direct attention. Everybody would just call me on my cell, and they feel that they get great service. But at the end of the day, we weren't making anywhere near
Mm.
the type of margins that we can make today. So that was, it was a long road. We went through all of the different uh, strategies, read lots of books, good to great, many, many business books. I probably read 100 different business books around how to scale a company, how to build a company, how to create culture. Um, and then I joined all the peer groups, every single one. Pretty much HTG, all these types of things that we joined and trying to figure out. I joined Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, which is the baby YPO. That was 4 or 5 years ago, and all these things to try to figure out, how do I become a better leader? How do I make this company better? And really, what we landed on is you've got to have that culture. You got to know what you're all about. You got to have people that buy into that culture. So, for example, if my personal culture is do whatever it takes to get the job done, and I hire people that don't match up to that,
Yeah.
it's very hard to have happy customers. It's very hard to make money. So that's probably our biggest success over the last, say, 4 or 5 years, is our ability to have a team where we just did our annual conference, um, which our year-end finished, and we do an annual conference. And I looked around the room and I thought, there's not one person here that's rolling their eyes. There's not one person here that's not totally invested in the company. And so
Chris,
that's the story.
is that really astound me that I read lots of books about business culture, and everybody's really proud of their company and people and every BS like that. And when I get to
Hmm.
this your company, I was shocked that that's a reality. So I was thinking the way back from Vancouver that what you said, lots of people joining peer groups, lots of people joining EO, lots of people joining or reading books. But what's the secret sauce of implementing those knowledges? Because you are in my sense, you are much your secret sauce is you implement what you are reading, what you are learning, and you have
Yeah,
something behind which is make this stuff stuck.
yeah,
Lots of people know what to do, some of
yeah,
them start to do, and just fail back, or just some of in really few people have it uh, consistently. So just,
Yeah.
I don't know how we tackle this, like based on your
It's so
story.
complex, right?
Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
complex, but actually, how to start. What was the first impression when you get this impression that okay, we have to build a system because you are building like a system now, which is your
Yeah.
company. So what was the first time and just the stories behind? I'm really really interested on that.
Yeah. I think, I think it's like most small companies. You start out and you just really want to grow, and you start, you make a lot of mistakes. You hire too quickly, which is something we now take an extremely long time to hire someone. We're very careful about who we hire, um, and it sort of seems like almost like over the top, like what. So it took us a long time to figure that out, that you got to hire slow and fire quickly.
Okay.
Um, Right,
Okay.
and then on the customer side, almost the exact same thing. We are part of our sales process today. We're almost trying to talk the customer out, or the prospect out of working with us. We're trying to find out reasons. We're trying to look for the things that are red flags right away. Like if we put a strategy in front of you, is that something you're going to pull the trigger on? Or is this something where you're going to say, oh, it looks nice, but maybe next year, maybe the year after? And so those types of things we kind of take into the sales process. And hey, we don't, maybe you can come and work with us in 1 or 2 years when you are ready to do that. And
That's
we've had a
that's
lot of
that's
success with
stop
that.
stop here. So you
Yeah.
say you are hiring your clients. That's so freaking awesome.
In a way, yeah, right? In a
So
way. And I think that's the other thing is you want to add business. So you want to add new recurring contracts all the time. We look at it as, hey, why don't we add, we want to add slowly
yeah,
and add the right
and the
business.
right clients. So so I heard lots of time that lots of smaller MSPs, like when you were like six, seven people, what was your target size of clients? Is it changed or is it the same?
It's changed. I think back then I would have said what everybody says is, I want 50 to 100 employees is great, right? But then you think about that and how many of those contracts can you handle at 6 or 7 people?
Mm,
So that's the challenge, right? I mean, for us, we look at a contract, let's say 6 or 7 people, a 50-seat contract. Maybe they spend 7,000 to 10,000, depending on what services they
mm.
have a month. What's the labor amount, that's going to take to deliver that service properly? So what we ended up doing at those times is we had a lot smaller customers, but it doesn't mean that you can't do a great job with IT with the smaller size businesses, and especially with cloud and things like
Yeah,
this, to make it fairly stable,
still
um, affordable
backbone.
environment. Now, I mean, we definitely talk ourselves out of it if it's below, for 30, 40 seats. We struggle to add the same value,
That's
right,
really
that we
interesting.
would.
That's really interesting because what I see is that lots of MSPs have struggling. That I have my current target clients are 10, 15 people companies. Weeks.
Yeah,
They don't have the budget, they don't have the interest, they don't have the complexity where you are able to build up your company. So
yeah,
what's because the other thing is you need to create a different value proposition for the 15 people clients and the
mm,
50 people clients. How do you see the
yeah.
change or how they can start to get to bigger accounts? And 50, 60 is not that big, but it's still really decent.
It's bigger, yeah. So I mean, I think it's sort of like Vern Harnish way. If you know your market, you know your
Yeah.
sandbox, and you focus just on that. In the States, it's much easier to say, hey, or if I'm in New York City, I could say, I want to focus on accounting firms that are between 35 and 37 people, and it would be, easy for me to get 100 customers probably that fits that profile. In Canada, we're not quite as, in Western Canada, we're not quite as lucky, so we have to address more industries
Yep.
but we still focus on that size and sort of um, importance of IT. So we're focused on the companies where IT, downtime costs money. Never retail, never, certain industries, accounting, legal, those are great. Uh, Manufacturing, we have certain verticals that we focus on. So first and foremost, you got to pick the size,
Yeah.
and then we follow those loosely, but we have our own system, but it's loosely the Rockefeller habits, and so if we're going to change our sandbox, if we're going to say, hey, this year now we want to focus on 50, 75 to 100. We have to develop our strategies, sales, account management,
Okay.
everything, service delivery, metrics, all has to be tied to that size. Like we have a couple customers that push us out beyond our comfort zone at the 250 to 300 seat range. Very different. And one of the things I learned, for example, is that size, the seat price goes up, doesn't go down. Some people say, hey, that's a huge, you have so many seats, I can sell it to you at a lower price
That's
because you have so many
interesting.
seats. It goes up because guess what? You got to have like way more project management, way more oversight, way more site visits. You're dealing with IT people.
Mm.
Um, those things cost money. Customer service costs go up. So,
And
uh,
complexity is going higher, so
and
it's like
complexity is going
exponential
higher.
until do the change. What I
Yeah.
picked one thing really quickly, or like put it some systematic way that you have a struggle, you have a service delivery which is great for 15 people companies. You
Mhm.
don't have a sales process, you just have referrals or
Bring it
something
in. Yeah.
like that. So it's not a sustainable. You don't have any structure. You don't have any real process. You don't have any what you are able. What would be the start you would start with to create some kind of systematic approach. You said Rockefeller Habits, just for the note. Rockefeller Habits is a closed loop management methodology, which is really easy to start, and then you are able to create your company as you are growing. It's really basic management philosophy, but it's a really precise and fun way. So you are using that. So what would you start? What the key process you would start if you want to change your clients from 15 to 50? Because lots of things
Yeah.
going on. You said.
There's lots of things going on. I mean, we know some of the systems that are out there, on how to do service delivery, the 4 blocks of service and these types of things. So, I for me, I look at it as I always go back to financials. So we got to say, all right, how many of these, what's our goals for the year? What do we want to grow? We want to grow 10, 15%. And so let's say we want to grow 25% this year.
Okay.
The way I look at that is say, all right, so we can either do X number of 15-seat clients, or we can do X number of 30-seat clients, or we can do X number of 50-seat clients. And then I say, okay, so what's the clip rate? We want to add one 50-seat client every month. Okay, that's pretty aggressive. Like
Yeah.
that's going to be, not many people can do that successfully. But wait, one every 2 months. So 50-seat client creates this much revenue. How much labor do I need to
Yeah.
support that revenue? And then sort of model out the staffing for that. And then obviously things like SWOT analysis, like,
Yeah.
what if we bring on this 50-seat client, what's going to happen? Are we going to keep this client today with what
Yeah.
we have? And probably like yourself, I look at things differently now. When I start a new business, I think of it more like an investor. Um, I understand that you I don't enjoy faking it too much. Bringing on the 50-seat client and then struggling to keep them happy. I'd rather, bear some cost up front
Yeah.
and then bring them on and know that the service delivery is going to be good, and so they
Mm.
have a good experience. So I think that's a really kind of an interesting way to think about it, is like, what are you willing to invest to move your
Yeah.
service delivery up?
And the other thing is most cases, so for example, sales, I see that most people are starting with having service delivery, have struggles creating some processes, focusing internally on the nuts and bolts of the managed service, and
Yeah,
then they start to attract new, sales without any
yeah.
marketing, without any guidance, without any processes, without anything. And that's gonna lots of time blew up the company because the wrong customers are coming,
Yeah.
too much of them, no process for managing that growth. So when you had this first problem, when you hired the first out sales guy, how many people you
We
were?
Yeah, we kind of go with a little bit of the principal-led selling model. We have a sales team. I still get involved in some big deals, for example, but
Just
usually
for
not.
fun.
Usually not. Just for fun. I'll send in a quick email. But um, so developing, in order to have a sales team, you need a sales process.
Yeah.
And because we made the mistake early on, we hired a sales guy, and he kind of comes in and he goes, well, you don't have a really a good pitch. you don't have a good system to close deals, and so he's left in the position where, okay, I guess I'm going to try to create my own. And then what he ends up doing is bringing in the wrong business at a
Yep.
too low of a price, and it implodes. So I would just say, figure out, the first step is definitely figure out that sales process. It's before marketing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You got to figure out the sales process so you can get the lead. When you get a lead, you can close it and make sure you get the right lead. You got to have the service delivery figured out and all the processes around that so that when the sales closes it, you
Yeah.
can do the delivery,
Sustainable.
and
It's
then
talking.
you can market.
Yeah, that's
And
that's
then
a,
you can
that's a kind of controversy because somehow it's like a crawling before you walk, before you run. Uh,
yeah.
but uh, but usually people just, you know what, I'm really, it's really interesting. People are saying interesting things that our closure ratio is 90%. All right, how you get leads? Referrals. All right, so
Yeah.
referrals have a problem, right? Yes, they have a problem, and they know you. Yeah, they know you. So you're not closing sales. Your referral already closed that for you. It's just, you make the paperwork, right? And that's,
Hmm.
you are struggling with scale because you are not able to scale this referral base. You need to go out for people who doesn't have a problem.
Yeah.
That's when marketing is coming, lead generation is coming, and process coming. Because basically
Yeah.
these are just administration, like sending the proposal, have some talk, and start the business. And it's lots of time it's misguiding because the sales process is basically educating the client of the expectations and everything. And if you are missing that sales process, you are missing the half of the onboarding, right? So
Yes.
that's really interesting. What I or how I witnessed that. How you said principle based sales. What's it's all about? So what
Well,
how you use it, or what you're using for sales?
it's sort of like, if you think of how does a law firm or an accounting firm get new clients? They don't have a super sales guy.
Yep.
It's a hybrid of that approach. Like, I mean, for me to pick an accounting firm or pick a law firm, really, people are picking a professional firm. And so they want to see like who's leading this firm and what's their mindset. Is this the kind of company like, that's got the kind of leadership that I would connect with? So we at our size now, we have a number of those people that would give off that vibe in the boardroom, right? And but earlier, if I'm 10 or 15 staff, I would need to be that guy. I need to get out there and close those deals. And there's still firms out there that are 30, 40 people that still do that, and where the CEO is actively, the top
Be
sales guy.
involved. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. You don't want to be doing the administrative work, but to go show up in a boardroom and tell your story is
Exactly. That's
very
that's
powerful,
what
right?
you need. And what I like when I was in your place, you said that you ask all of your prospect to come to your place. That was like, what?
Hmm. Yeah.
So what's the process for that? Because I think it's really key.
Yeah, one of the steps for us is we bring people through. I mean, it's an advantage we have, but I'd say like we have a pretty stunning, we can put on a pretty stunning tour, right? And we can show our service desk. We can meet all the executives, and we've got all the technology here that the kind of the how we would recommend you set up your infrastructure is pretty much what you see when you come by. So
Mm.
we make that part of the tour. We say tour is a mandatory step. If they're not willing to invest to come and meet us and
That's
meet the
that
team,
that's awesome. Mandatory step.
yeah, we don't because we sort of say, hey, we're not. It's not a transactional company. We're not. Um, it's not just about client vendor. It's really partnership. And if they don't see it that way, they just, hey, send me a quote. And we say, nah, I don't
No,
need to send you a quote. If they say send me a quote, I'll say, yeah, it's 10,000 a month. Anything else? That's the quote.
that's
Right?
interesting. Yeah,
And they
because
go, okay, yeah, I don't need to send a quote. We need to talk about a lot more stuff. We need to talk about vision and where are we going with this and what do you want IT to look like and are we the right company? Are you the right company?
yeah,
Are you
it's
willing to sign a long-term contract? These are all things we haven't even talked about yet, right? So,
that's interesting. So your churn rate shouldn't be really high, I guess.
no, yeah, we don't do it. We just say, hey, like, we just want the right companies that
Yeah,
are going to do
yeah,
that.
exactly. So he's picking up your people slowly, picking up your clients slowly. I like your boot. actually.
Thank you.
uh,
Part of
so,
our theme for the year,
what,
getting things done.
getting this done?
Getting things done. So we're pulling an Albertan theme this year. Cowboys.
All right. I'm going to
Yeah.
send over like a hat for you for
It's
the
a
next
great book,
time.
by the way, Getting Things Done as well. If,
GTD, yeah. So
yeah.
actually, if you are because you read lots of books and probably you picked lots of ideas. Like I read hundreds of books like you. What's your best five or three which you can recommend?
Well, definitely, I mean, obviously, Rockefeller Habits, I've already
Yep.
mentioned it, Vern
And the
Harnish,
new one is the scale up,
Scaling Up, which
scaling
I'll
up.
just
That's the new
order
version.
that right now.
It came up
Uh,
last week. So
okay, good. Multipliers is a great book
multipliers,
for
awesome book.
leadership. Just how do you get other people to act like you do? Definitely getting things done.
TTD,
Uh,
time management.
yeah, the time management and how do successful people filter out the important things from the not important
Yep.
things. And everybody says they're too busy, but that's not really a good excuse, as we all know. And then I would say Jim Collins
Because
books, How the Mighty Fall, Good to Great, great books,
awesome. How about
great inspiring,
how about Stephen Covey's books like Seven Habits and sort of things?
highly successful people. Yeah, great stuff as well.
Yeah,
There's
because
there's so many, right?
yeah, so many.
They all sort of mash up after a while. It's a lot of the same stuff in all of the
Here or
books,
there,
but
and for example, I'm really interested on you have like 40 people now. So how many people? Not how many. So how you because you read a book, right? And you go, okay,
yeah.
guys, that's the direction. So how you have them, how you train them, how you make sure that they are following you in a sense, not just see go back and nobody's behind. You are with a flag and no
Yeah.
army. So
Yeah. I've seen a lot of companies that do this not very successfully. Like CEO reads a book and then, comes back from a conference and says, I've got 30 books, everybody read this, this is what we're doing, and it's just not very effective. So
okay,
for me, my job is to read all this stuff. And the way I look at it is I'm not going to try to take something and, create a formula from it. I just try to learn. I try to assimilate the information and then just think about it for a while. And
yeah,
then I usually try to do everything in a rhythm. So we have an annual
okay,
meeting, quarterly meeting, monthly meeting, weekly meeting, daily huddle, many days. And so that's my job, is to think about what's the right forum to take that to and who should I take it to, and how slow do I release that information, which is very difficult for entrepreneurs to,
yeah.
because everybody wants to say, I want all to do all this stuff right away. You almost have to have your own internal Rockefeller habits, right? I,
Exactly. It's like how I see the time management is the personal time management is similar like Rockefeller habits is like a company time management. Same
yeah,
same stuff, same principles. And what I see is that people are getting the idea of the time management. So I have a goal, I have to break down, I have priorities, I have a time what I have to uh, allocate for different problems and have some kind of balance. These persons can understand how you run the company really quickly, because this is the same stuff applies.
yeah,
And what I would like to understand is that when you read probably lots of autobiography you read, and there are the kind of like hockey stick curves in personal careers when you were growing, and dang, something happened, and you grow really highly. So, for example, you said something that, for example, probably your people number or employee number in a company was like steady, and when dang happened,
yeah.
and it grew around rapidly. Do
Yeah.
you remember this moment?
I don't know if I do remember the exact moment. I would say maybe the moment hasn't happened yet, to be honest.
Ooh.
Because it's been 12 years. It's taken a long time to get here, right? But um, no, I definitely think like there's some aha moments where
Yeah.
you kind of realize you
When you
have to
somehow
grow.
become from like a manager or from a boss to a leader, or you start to work on your company, that's a moment when you move forward and you start something to build. It's probably not the moment when you're realizing then, but probably from just think about that. I think that's something, maybe a book or something was in when get the last piece of
Yeah.
the puzzle probably.
I think the starting point. What was the other book? The Wealthy Barber, as
Wealthy
well.
Barber.
Or is that's good?
I
Wealthy Barber.
I don't know. I
You
haven't read
read
that.
that one? That's a good one. It's like sort of a guy with a how did he take a uh, I don't remember what it was, coffee shop or whatever, and or it was a baker or something, and he made it into this huge brand, and the process, big part, obviously a huge part of. Okay, so all right, so culture, right?
The
Having the right
culture.
culture
Okay.
was the first step, and then sort of like you've got all the hype, but does your company actually live up to the hype? So that's the next step is trying to figure out how do I live up to the hype, I've designed a culture which is all these values and our approach and why we exist and all this. Well, now you have to kind of like in many cases you have to rehire to those values because what you have there doesn't match up to what your culture is. So we had to do that step. That was the next step. And now when you get everybody kind of rowing in the same direction, it frees you up. Like for example, our management team, to be able to have such a strong management team with very little noise that comes up past them. That's been essential for me to be able to sit quietly and think about what's next. What's our new lines of business? What are we gonna do next with these customers? And what's a new service we can offer them that's high value? You can't really do that when you're involved in,
Yeah.
customers unhappy and all the service issues and all that stuff. So I think the aha moment for me and what I learned is for the next company and is around strong management team. It's one of the first hires I would make, in a service desk, let's say,
Yeah.
you know, get the right person in that role that just kills it, and it will save you so much, so many headaches.
And tell me about your company culture because I think it's still really how to say we have lots of people from Australia and Europe and things like that. I think this kind of culture thing is really American in a way of management, but but I see the value in lots of cases. And can you just tell me about how you realize that how you shape this kind of culture, what culture means? So how you can grab it
Yeah,
and what's the takeaways and what's the constraints of defining your values and what's your
yeah.
takeaways and that's the thing I'm really interested.
Well, yeah. So I think that there's a lot of people in the world. A lot of people. Everybody works, and most people work. So it's the job of whoever's the leading the company to sort of define that culture. What do you believe in, and what's going to inspire the leader to grow this business, right? And so that was the first exercise I did is to design that. And so all these things are what I believe in and how I would, when I was one guy running around, I would answer the phone at 4 in the morning because that's what it takes to get the job done. And so all those things work into the core values. I would always say thank you. I would always be polite. I would never,
Ah,
all these things are all, common. They were my individual values that then we created. Um, and then it's sort of, but it has to be tangible. And so that's another thing we only learned in the last couple of years is, you can say, oh, we're such a fantastic brand and we have, great logos and colors and all this stuff. And that's not what a brand is. Brand and culture is like the people all believe, like,
hmm.
believe. And so, you'll walk in and if people need to be up all night, they're going to be up all night. And they don't even complain about it. And they don't say, hey, where's my overtime pay? Um, that's real culture is people that actually,
Live and breathe.
believe and execute on those values. So how do we figured out how to what questions to ask and interview lengthy
Yeah.
interview process to find those people, and then we sort of nurture that culture by ensuring that we reward the behaviors that
Reward the
when we
behavior.
see that, we celebrate. Uh, we use internal announcements. We let people know. We celebrate all those successes. At the annual conference every year, we give out awards for each of the core values. The team nominates, and then it gets voted down to like one person. So we just did that in the last couple of weeks here, and so we had 5 awards, and it was the best because people say, you know what, that is the guy that exhibits that core value. So it's pretty cool.
That's really nice. And how do you see that? Because it's, I see that you are the founder and the owner, and you are extending yourself to this organization. How this organization shaped by different people's culture, not in a negative way, it's positive way. So how when you are realizing, hey guys, this is a big, exhibiting that core value because I don't what I don't have, but he's there and it extending this whole value system. So how you see that?
other people contributing,
Yeah.
you're saying, to the values? Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's like people exhibit certain people have different values that they, gravitate towards. So like on my voicemail, I have my favorite, which is absolute accountability, and then other people have their favorite, which might be fanatical service or, uh, you know,
Can you
passion for
can you
technology.
explain
So
us all the values you have and just what's behind? Because I think that's really interesting.
yeah, I mean, I won't list them all, but we kind of said, hey, we want to have three or four core values. Before you have the core values, you got to have a core purpose, and that this is from Vern Harnish. You got to know. You see in the Simon Sinek video,
Yeah. Why?
start with why. So same thing. Why do you exist? And it's not to deliver IT.
Yeah.
Delivering IT
Is the
is
how and the
what
what?
you do or how you do. Yeah. Why are we here? So in our case, it's creating peace of mind, and we
Hmm.
see that copied everywhere now, and that's okay because it's trademarked. So we can always send a cease and desist later if we see that. Same with fully managed is also trademarked, by the way. But anyways, um, creating peace of mind was where we started, and then each core value is somehow ties into that core purpose of how do we create peace of mind for our customers? Hey, if we execute on these four things, which is around accountability, the service, fanatical service, passion for technology, we're getting we started with certain ones and we're building and we're kind of growing in certain areas. Like so, for example, passion for technology. An example of that would be, um, we're a tech company, so we better be passionate about technology. So we wanted to have technology be part of
Yeah, the
our
core
core values.
values.
So people that like to hack iPhones and do things with Android and automate things and the scientist
Yeah.
thing is a very good thing for us. But not everybody has that. Our finance team is not going to be um,
Yeah.
a scientist. So those people might be more around accountability and service, right? So
That's interesting. So what I've seen in your when I observing your company is that you are really human in that sense that you know management, people, culture, clients, and everything is really human. But based on that, you are working in a really rock solid system. Systems like rhythms, rules, discipline, processes, regulations, policies. Can you tell me about this other kind of more engineering kind of way of your company?
yeah, that and I think it was funny because we started we started with culture and we figured that out. It's pretty easy to do that exercise and get that done. Well, then how do you execute? How does your
Yeah.
service delivery match up? And how do you make a successful? How do you make money?
Yeah.
And so actually, again, not to toot this guy's horn too much, but Vern Harnish, we use this quote in some of our presentations, but Vern Harnish is all about lean
Yeah.
manufacturing, and he believes in taking the lean concept, which is reducing waste in a business, and he believes you can apply that to any industry.
Yeah.
It came from the Toyota production system. Why is every car produced on time?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, they've had a few challenges over the years, but without defect and without jamming up the manufacturing line, well, it's exactly the same with managed services and IT services. You basically have a factory, and your factory is service.
Yeah.
And so
It's
every
totally
day,
agree.
all you're doing is responding to things, doing proactive things, doing reactive things, doing strategy, and all these things. And so what we did, and the reason I started IT Glue was, and part of the reason we became successful as fully managed is we had this pretty locked in. When when we hire a new employee and we want that person to start up and within a week or so, our goal was we don't want to spend more than a week or so training people. And the typical industry would be, oh, you know what, before someone can be really effective, it's going to take 2, 3 months. They got to learn the clients,
Yeah.
learn the technology, learn the processes. And instead, what we said is, hey, every customer needs to be perfectly structured from a process, documentation. Everything has to be organized in a way that I can hire a new guy, he can start, and within a week he can look at customer X and immediately work on that environment, as long as they've got the background and experience in IT. So that's why IT Glue came to be. We basically said, hey, that's why we were successful with fully managed. Ultimately, we can hire people, bring them in, minimal training, and that's great for the company. Um, you don't have to ask your peer, how do I,
Yeah.
add a new user.
All the information is right on your hand. Yeah.
It's right there, and it's always in the same place, and it's very easy to document. So, and then not only that, but then looking at those processes, and that's where lean comes in and saying, okay, this set of steps takes us an hour, and we do that transaction 1,000 times in a year, so it's 1,000 hours, right? Let's say. So you say, okay, that's 1,000 hours, and what's our average labor rate? Let's say it's $30 to $50 fully loaded for the people doing that work. Okay, that's a lot of money. So if I can cut the labor by 10% over the year,
That's interesting.
what would I put that labor towards? And the answer is probably towards your pocket. As an
I like.
owner of the company, you're going to put that in your pocket because the pricing is pretty dictated for our industry. You're going to charge a seat price or a per computer price, whatever that may be. Your opportunity to make money is how efficiently can you do that work.
Yeah, it's everything is based on operation efficiency, operation maturity, and it's really interesting that how you raise your company, you are raising your maturity, but it should be other way around. You should be step with 5 people, get the kick-ass maturity, and then scale, and this goes like hell, because you are over
Absolutely.
competing everybody for. And so usually people just wait. Okay, when we get 10 people and 11 people, no, it's just totally block you down when you
Yeah,
get to this level, and you are carrying a little bit overhead, and
yeah,
when his cash is not there, your limitation is really high, and you are not
yeah,
able to go back to your clients. You know what? I'm up 20% because I have to make money. It's not the way,
yeah.
and
And it's pretty difficult. Like if you scale it up, the higher the scale,
it's
the
that the
more,
more the
to go
difficulties.
back and redo it. For us, 120 customers that we'd have to go back and, redo. That's what this is all about, the gray hair. Like
Yeah.
this, to go back and standardize everything, halfway through, like you say,
Yeah.
better off to just figure it out
First,
now, document,
first. And,
and develop the process and develop the standards, IT standards that should be in place for every customer,
yeah, but you
and then
said
roll it out.
you said, I think, in when we started the conversation, first is figure out the process for sales, and figure out the process for the delivery, and then go to the
Hmm.
market. So same applies,
Yes,
because
absolutely.
if this two is not sustainable, you are just kicking yourself, and
Yeah,
that's happening with, and that's how is it these ups and downs coming all the time, and
yeah.
it's not a sustainable one. The other thing which I really fascinated, if you read a book about the sigmoid curve, the learning curve, which is what you start learning something, your performance is dropping, and then you go up, and then there is a place when you are not able to learn more or start to grow more in that particular thinking model or phase or something
Mm,
like that. You have to switch to another learning curve. But the
yeah,
switch to the learning curve, when you are successful and everything is right, and then you need to go and drop your performance. That's the biggest issues in development, because development is not like that. It's like
yeah,
little changes, like 5 people to 6 people is like one, then 15 and 25, and like probably you are having some issue that, okay, you know what, I need more location, I need how I'm
yeah,
scaling the company now, because we have 40 people in Vancouver. If you want to grow, we
yeah.
have to go different ways. So that's how I'm going to do that. So it's like really interesting that it's always you are creating some success is creating the new problems for you only.
It is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So let's say go back for this kind of theoretical company. So we have this kind of 5-6 people company. You know, rhythms are important. People are important. Sales and delivery is important. In the delivery side, I would like to go into that. Okay, so because obviously you seen some niche in this market, because you have this product called IT Glue, which is basically
Hmm.
documentation management and what you call the
Standardization. Yeah.
standardization. So I think
Yeah.
that's a key thing to start really early, to focus on processes and this type of stuff. Just give us some thinking that No, how not the application, what is doing, but what's the purpose
What's the
behind that? So
purpose?
why you seeing that there is no such product in the market? There are connectorized Autotask. I figure out that process will be there. You have Wikipedias. You
Yeah.
have lots of things.
Yeah.
Why you need another system, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what was okay, so most people that are doing documentation are doing um, all kinds of different stuff. They've got password tools,
Yep.
they're using Word documents, they're using maybe a wiki, they're using SharePoint. Um, they got fragmented stuff.
The,
Some of it's on the customer's environment, some of it's on their environment. There's no collaborative piece with the customers. So why IT Glue came to be is we've aside the biggest value to really to for someone to use it is efficiency. That in a nutshell. So
okay.
efficiency means less staff and and less risk for the company. So back in the day before this, which was more than 10 years ago, we really struggled if we had a guy and he had a lot of information in his brain. Um, he leaves, which
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
industry is a sad reality. It's very
Yeah.
competitive. Um, if you have a good brand, you don't lose that many people, uh,
But still, it's the
but
case.
it's a reality, and that guy leaves, and with him leaves all the knowledge. And so addressing that was really one part for us is if it's kind of like if the documentation's not there, it it's you don't do any work yet until the
Yep.
documentation's there. Even when we're going to set up something new, some new IT ecosystem, you build it out in there with all the documentation, and then you install it. Um, and make it very easy to adjust over time. So the other problem is it's a lot like strategic plans that most people, business plan. You create a plan and then it just sort of sits in the drawer and
Yeah.
nobody
In
looks at it
one.
until
Yeah.
next year,
Exactly.
right? So you need a system where uh, this is evolutionary and where you can actually see, new versions of things are happening every day through service delivery, and to the point where we've reached, we have so much accountability to this that uh, adding a new user, let's say, very common task in IT.
Yep.
Um, if you think of how is that done, how is that done at a high operational maturity level versus a low operational
Yep.
maturity level?
Yeah. I can
High
imagine.
operational maturity level is every single time it's done exactly the same way and it takes exactly the same amount of time. And that time is dictated by the company. It's not dictated by the quality of the person that you've hired. So
That's
for
easy.
us,
Hmm.
we can hire a guy at half the price that maybe you can hire a guy, and he just follows the steps, and it takes him the exact same time as double the cost guy.
This
So what
is
do you think that results for us, right?
That's interesting because we've been talking about a lot of things in virtual CIOs, which is basically a higher stuff. Same
Yeah,
applies, but you said it's
yeah,
really interesting. So what in that case, how I can relate here is that the virtual CIO is the highest user creation, asset for you or something like that, and the
yeah,
same stuff applies if you are able to processize and do it in a much more maturity level. That means you don't have to be the virtual CIO, but you can train
yeah,
people and get the salary lower and the profit higher because the service is much better than you do
yeah,
it like by yourself because it's a systematic approach. So I
absolutely.
like this stuff. So you mean that you are able to charge more because you have a much better quality service, but you are able to do it in a less
So you're actually doubling
double.
down,
Yeah,
right? It's like a double whammy. Your
that's
costs go up, your price goes up. Your costs go
that's
down, your price goes up.
that's
So, and
interesting.
this is what
So
the best performing companies, that's why you see the margins that you see. If you look at
yeah,
service leadership,
yeah, yeah.
you look at the companies that have the high gross margins, it's not magic. It's really three things, I think.
Discipline.
It's it's the standardization of the environment. You cannot
Yeah,
beat that. If you're supporting 17 different backup platforms, you're never going to make money. So it's got to be one. Right? I think everybody's
yeah.
recognized that. You got to have one router, one firewall, one switch, one backup device, one type of server. Like it's all the same. So that's fine. The second thing is, process. So standardization within that hardware is how is it set up? Is it set up the same way for everybody? Third thing is process. How do I add new,
Okay.
delete, change? And then the fourth thing, and then once you've got that in place, you can reduce your costs. You've got a lower cost resources that can execute those tasks because they're highly standardized, very easy to train, and
It's
the
scalable.
outcome is you make more money and it's very
Yeah,
scalable. So
scalable. Hmm.
yeah,
And
so and
and that's
takes away all that rocket scientists. Rocket scientists are not required, right?
yeah, interesting that you don't you are relying more like in your processes than your people. It's really
Yeah,
controversial
and
because you are working on the people as well. So it's really interesting
yeah,
observation.
and the outcome for the customer is what they see
Concise, the
that everything is
standard.
consistent
Yeah.
and standardized, and so they go, well, I know why we pay the extra money because it's such a good
Hmm.
quality outcome, and so it's kind of funny that they're getting higher quality outcome and paying more, and we're actually it's costing less.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
fantastic. And I think if you see the same stuff, and I would rather to do this example with like Starbucks and Apple, because what they did is basically first of all they reframed their clients that you can buy coffee for $5 instead of one,
Hmm.
and you can buy an iPad for whatever. That was one thing. I think you have the why. You started this Simon Sinek video, start with why. That's the first principle I see you are applying. That's really important.
Hmm.
The second was the processes that how to create this product in a less amount of how is it scalable, and then because people buying, I think Starbucks stuff and Apple stuff is they are produced in a really low price
Hmm. Hmm.
because standardized. I have two notebooks instead of Lenovo's 52 type of notebooks, and
Yeah.
I attached to the people that why I'm doing that. So I think that's the second kind of principle which I see based on these processes. And
Hmm.
you haven't said discipline, but I think what's
That,
your background or what you have to be concise, disciplined, and not go here or there all the time. Just what you
yeah.
said in Rockefeller habits, purpose, and then boil down on this stuff. So
The
yeah,
discipline is huge. So we don't. I'll just super quick touch on that. We have the same as we do a one-page plan every year,
yeah,
which is, here's our, and usually what the plan is two things, maybe three, but the two big kind of rocks for the year, one would be, hey, we want to grow our revenue from this to this. The
okay.
second one would be we want to grow our margin from this to this. And
Opa.
then we take all that and we break out and everybody figures out, okay, what can my department do to make that happen? So obviously sales knows what they can do. Finance maybe knows what they can do. Um, Marketing knows what they can do. This command center knows what they can do. In our case, that's the service desk. So all those things are part of it. But then the execution of that's great to make the plan. The execution of that is really the individual accountability. So this guy knows that if he's a guy that's in the service desk, he must hit these metrics
Yeah.
because we've calculated it and it rolls up into the
Oh,
annual
that's interesting. So
number.
that's why it's interesting. So you are clear on your figures. So it's like or transparent for the people, the revenues,
Totally
margins.
transparent. Yeah,
It's interesting. So that's creating the kind of mutual accountability because everybody knows who is doing what for making this whole stuff together, and that
yeah.
creates a lot of accountability. That's really smart.
And then we have the dashboards that
True, I
show that,
saw them.
pretty much everybody's name in the entire company
Yeah.
is on a dashboard somewhere. And that dashboard shows their real-time performance to the metric that they're accountable to for the quarter. So everybody knows and everybody can see who's
What's
green,
going on?
yellow, red. And
Ah,
so, first you got to figure out what those metrics are. And there's a lot of people that can, that have talked about what those are. But once you know what they are and you figured out what they are and how do you keep customers happy and how do you keep the margins up, it's just execution, right? The
and,
hardest part of any business is execution.
and what's your BHAG?
1 million fully managed devices.
I'm I'm really astounded, to be honest, Chris. It's like it's a really great talk, and I think lots of takeaways in practical terms. And I really thank you for this call, and I believe we are going to go back and pick something later on because I'm just get more question to
Yeah,
to see how to do this stuff, and I think lots of MSPs want to have credible sources, not vendors talking about this and that to use our stuff. they
Yeah.
want to have credible people who done that, not just talking about that. So thank you very much
Awesome.
for the talk. And one thing, if you have like 3 things you can summarize something for the audience, what you would like to suggest to them to grow their business, just fire up in the end. And
Let's see if we can do that. 3 things, eh?
yeah,
Well, obviously discipline, I think is a big one. Just kind of know what you're focused on and go after it. Rhythm,
rhythm.
have a consistency to everything. Like, it can't do one meeting one week and then miss it the next week. You've
Yeah,
got to be consistent, and staff management the same thing. And then I think probably really focus on. I think vision is pretty easy. I think strategy is relatively easy. I think really how are you going to execute
the
this? Pick
execution part.
something that you can actually hit this. Can I actually hit this? And don't fudge the numbers. If you can't add a customer every month, set a different target, and then hit that target, and you'll be successful with that.
Yeah,
So I think execution. Yeah,
cool.
there you go.
Thank you, Chris, and
Okay.
good luck for your BHAG.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.